I recall vividly the instant I grasped that my life had been a facade. I was showing a method to my pupils, carrying out each motion with flawless accuracy, every hit landing precisely where intended, my technique impeccable by every manual I had ever read. But as I completed the routine, I gazed into my students' eyes and saw something that crushed my reality. They admired my skill, certainly, but they were unmoved. They weren't stirred or changed. They had observed a robotic show of physical skill, but felt nothing. And at that moment, I realized a harsh truth about mastery. Flawless technique, devoid of emotional depth, is merely an intricate charade. It's akin to viewing a stunning painting without essence, listening to music without soul, reading text without significance. That evening, I returned home and positioned myself before the mirror, not to rehearse my methods, but to confront the most crucial question of my life. Who are you in solitude? What emotions surface when you remove all performance, all expectations, all desires to impress? And what I discovered there frightened me more than any adversary I had ever encountered. I found void, not the tranquil void of contemplation, but the barren void of a person so fixated on perfection that he had forgotten how to feel. I had turned into a robot, efficient and exact, but utterly lacking the very essence that makes us human. The ability to feel intensely, to express genuinely, to act from the depth of our being rather than merely the surface of our training. You recognize this sensation, don't you? Don't you? That feeling of merely going through life's motions, achieving every milestone, uttering all the correct phrases, yet sensing you're an outsider observing yourself. You've become so adept at portraying the person you believe you should be that you've lost sight of your true self. You execute your job with skill, but no fervor. You manage your relationships with courtesy, but no real bond. You chase your ambitions with resolve, but no happiness. You've perfected the art of living, but forgotten the emotional depth that makes life meaningful. This is today's crisis. We inhabit a world that prizes efficiency over genuineness, performance over presence, appearance over substance. We're conditioned to stifle our emotions, to regulate our feelings, to present a refined self to the world. But in doing so, we've severed ourselves from the very source of our strength. Because here's what I uncovered on my path from robotic perfection to genuine expression. Emotion is not the foe of excellence. Emotion is the catalyst of excellence. It's not something to be restrained or stifled. It's something to be comprehended, directed, and conveyed with accuracy and might. Let me recount the day everything shifted. I was filming a scene that demanded intense fury. The director persistently requested more intensity, more power, more authenticity. I attempted every technique I knew. I strained my muscles, I scowled, I displayed all the external signs of rage. But it felt empty, artificial, as if I were donning a mask of emotion rather than expressing true sentiment. Eventually, the director halted the scene and uttered something that pierced through all my pretense. Bruce, I see you feigning anger, but I don't sense your rage. Where is your emotional depth? That inquiry haunted me for weeks. Where was my emotional depth? I had dedicated so much time to mastering my emotions that I had forgotten how to access them. I had become so fearful of vulnerability, of displaying frailty, of relinquishing control, that I had erected barriers around my heart, so formidable that even I couldn't penetrate them. But that evening, alone in my training space, I made a choice that would revolutionize not just my acting, but my entire approach to life. I chose to experience everything fully, not to govern it, not to evaluate it, not to suppress it, but to feel it completely and express it sincerely. I began with anger, the emotion I believed I understood best. But as I permitted myself to truly experience my anger, not just ponder it or act it out, but actually feel it in my body, I uncovered something astonishing. My anger wasn't truly anger at all. It was pain. It was let down. It was fear masquerading as hostility. It was the accumulated suffering of years of attempting to conform to a world that misunderstood me, of battling for acceptance in a field that viewed me as an outsider, of endeavoring to express my truth in a language that wasn't my native tongue. When I allowed myself to feel this deeper truth, when I ceased performing anger and began experiencing the genuine emotions beneath it, something extraordinary occurred. Authentic, potent, undeniable. This is what I mean by emotional depth. It's not about being emotional in the sense of being uncontrolled or excessively dramatic. It's about being emotionally truthful, emotionally genuine. It's about feeling what you truly feel rather than what you believe you should feel. It's about expressing what's genuinely alive within you rather than what appears acceptable on the surface. It's about acting from your core, from your truth, from the deepest part of your being. But here's the difficulty. Most of us have been instructed that emotions are perilous, unpredictable, something to be managed rather than experienced. We've learned to don masks, to perform roles, to present versions of ourselves that we deem more acceptable, more professional, more lovable. We've become so proficient at emotional performance that we've lost touch with emotional authenticity. We understand how to appear confident, but not how to feel it. We know how to seem happy, but not how to experience joy. We know how to look strong, but not how to access our true power. This disconnection from our emotional depth doesn't just impact our personal lives, it influences everything. Your work lacks passion because you've detached from what truly drives you. Your relationships lack depth because you've forgotten how to be vulnerable. Your goals feel hollow because they're based on what you believe you should desire rather than what you genuinely want. You're living another's life with another's emotions and questioning why nothing feels authentic, why nothing feels gratifying, why you feel like you're perpetually performing rather than living. I learned this lesson in the most agonizing way imaginable. There was a time in my life when I was accomplishing everything I thought I desired. My films were triumphant. My martial arts schools were prospering. People revered my skills and my philosophy. But internally, I felt vacant. I was going through the motions of success, but I wasn't feeling successful. I was acting happy, but I wasn't experiencing joy. I had attained technical mastery in every facet of my life, but I had lost emotional connection to all of it. The tipping point arrived during a sparring session with one of my pupils. He was less skilled than me, less experienced, less technically adept, but when he fought, there was an element in his movements that mine lacked. There was spirit, there was fervor, there was fervor, there was emotional depth. He wasn't merely executing techniques, he was expressing himself. He wasn't just aiming to win, he was attempting to convey something fundamental about his identity. And in that instant, I realized that all my technical superiority was meaningless if it wasn't imbued with genuine feeling, authentic expression, real emotional depth. That evening, I commenced a different kind of training, not training of the body or the mind, but training of the heart. I began attending to what I truly felt rather than what I believed I should feel. I started expressing my real emotions rather than performing the emotions I thought were suitable. I ceased striving to be the perfect martial artist, the perfect instructor, the perfect man, and began striving to be authentic, vulnerable, real. The transformation was swift and profound. My techniques didn't alter, but they became vibrant. My teaching didn't become more intricate, but it became more impactful. My relationships didn't become simpler, but they became more profound. Everything I did became infused with a quality that had been absent before, genuine emotional depth. And suddenly, people weren't just impressed by my abilities, they were moved by my essence. This is the missing element that most individuals lack in their lives. They've mastered the external techniques of success, but they've overlooked the internal fuel that makes success significant. They understand how to perform their roles, but they've lost touch with their true selves. They can execute the motions of their lives with precision, but they've forgotten how to feel their way through their experiences. Let me share with you the 3 tiers of emotional depth that I uncovered on my journey from mechanical perfection into authentic expression. Understanding these levels will help you identify where you stand in your own evolution and guide you toward deeper, more potent emotional authenticity. The initial level is emotional awareness. This is simply acknowledging what you're truly feeling in any given moment. It may sound straightforward, but it's groundbreaking for most individuals. We've been conditioned to disregard our emotions, to push past them, to concentrate on our tasks rather than our experiences. But emotions are data. They're your internal navigation system, informing you of what's effective and what's not, what resonates with your truth and what diverges from it. I recall the first time I practiced genuine emotional awareness. I was in a business meeting discussing a film project that didn't excite me but seemed like a wise career move. Instead of merely going through the motions of the conversation, I began paying attention to my actual feelings. I noticed a tightness in my chest, a sense of heaviness, subtle but persistent feeling of unease. My emotions were signaling something that my mind was attempting to disregard. This project wasn't in harmony with my authentic expression. When I started honoring that emotional insight rather than dismissing it, I began making choices that were not only professionally astute, but also personally satisfying. The second level is emotional acceptance. This is where many individuals become stuck. They become conscious of their emotions, but then they criticize them, resist them, attempt to alter them. They feel anger and believe they shouldn't. They feel sadness and think they're being fragile. They feel fear and think they're being timid. But emotions aren't right or wrong. They simply exist. They're like weather patterns in your internal landscape, natural occurrences that emerge and dissipate. The more you resist them, the more you resist them, the more influence they wield over you. The more you accept them, the more they can flow through you and transform. I learned this lesson during an especially challenging period when I faced criticism from both the martial arts community and the film industry. I felt a mix of anger, hurt, frustration, and disappointment. My initial reaction was to suppress these feelings, to maintain a brave facade, to pretend I was above such trivial concerns. But the more I attempted to push the emotions away, the more they dictated my behavior. I became defensive in interviews, aggressive in my training, and isolated in my relationships. It wasn't until I learned to accept these emotions, to experience them fully without judgment, that they began to lose their hold on me and transform into something more beneficial. The third level is emotional expression. This is where emotions become power. It's insufficient to merely feel your emotions or even to accept them. You must learn to express them genuinely and suitably. Doesn't imply being emotional constantly or unloading your feelings on everyone around you. It means learning to channel your emotional energy into your actions, your words, your presence, your art. It means infusing everything you do with the authentic feeling that's alive within you. This is what I discovered when I stopped trying to be the perfect martial artist and started being an authentic individual who practiced martial arts. My techniques became expressions of my inner state rather than mere mechanical movement. My teaching became a sharing of my truth rather than just a transmission of information. My films became vehicles for my authentic self rather than mere entertainment products. Everything I did became imbued with emotional depth, and suddenly, everything became more powerful, more meaningful, more alive. But here's what you must comprehend about emotional expression. It demands immense courage. It means presenting yourself as you truly are, rather than as you believe you should be. It means being vulnerable in a world that often penalizes vulnerability. It means risking rejection, criticism, and misunderstanding. It means choosing authenticity over approval, truth over comfort, expression over protection. I confronted this choice daily in Hollywood. I could have played it safe, accepted the roles offered to me, spoken the lines written for me, and been the exotic martial artist that the industry desired. Or I could have insisted on authentic expression, on roles that reflected my truth, on dialogue that came from my heart, on characters that embodied my genuine values and beliefs. The safe path would have been easier, but it would have been a betrayal of everything I believed about the significance of emotional depth. The same choice confronts you daily in your own life. You can play it safe, follow the script that society has written for you, express only the emotions that are socially acceptable, and show only the parts of yourself that are guaranteed to be well received. Or you can choose the path of authentic expression, of emotional honesty, of genuine vulnerability. The choice you make will determine not only how others perceive you, but also how alive you feel in your own life. Now, let me teach you the practices that transformed my relationship with my emotions and allowed me to access the power of authentic emotional depth. These aren't just techniques for actors or martial artists. These are tools for anyone who wants to live with more authenticity, more power, more vitality. The first practice is what I call emotional excavation. Every day, set aside time to delve beneath the surface of your automatic emotional responses and discover what's truly there. When you feel anger, ask yourself what you're really angry about. Often, anger is a cover for hurt, disappointment, or fear. When you feel anxiety, Explore what you're truly afraid of losing or not obtaining. When you feel depression, investigate what you're truly grieving or what dreams you've abandoned. I practiced this every morning before training. Instead of immediately starting physical practice, I would sit quietly and scan my internal landscape. What was I feeling? What emotions were present in my body? What was trying to get my attention? I would record these discoveries in my journal, not to analyze or fix them, but simply to acknowledge them. This practice taught me that emotions are like underground rivers, always flowing beneath the surface of consciousness. The more I learned to access these deeper currents, the more power I had available for authentic expression. The second practice is emotional embodiment. Emotions aren't just mental phenomena, they're physical experiences. Fear resides in your chest as tightness. Anger burns in your belly. Sadness weighs down your shoulders. Joy bubbles up from your core. Most people live so much in their heads that they've lost touch with the physical reality of their emotional life. But when you learn to feel emotions in your body, you gain access to a tremendous source of power and information. I developed this practice through my martial arts training. Instead of just going through the motions of techniques, I would practice feeling different emotions in my body and expressing them through movement. I would practice the physicality of courage, the embodiment of determination, the felt sense of peace. This wasn't about acting or pretending. It was about discovering how authentic emotions actually feel in the body and learning to access those feelings at will. The third practice is emotional integration. This is where you learn to bring your emotional depth into your daily actions and interactions. Right. Instead of compartmentalizing your feelings, you learn to infuse your work, your relationships, and your creative expression with the genuine emotions that are alive within you. This doesn't mean being unprofessional or inappropriate. It means being real, being present, and being authentically yourself in every situation. I practice this in my teaching. Instead of just demonstrating techniques mechanically, I would share the emotions that the techniques evoked in me. I would talk about the fear I felt when learning a new skill, the frustration of repeated failure, the joy of breakthrough, and the humility of being corrected by a master. My students didn't just learn techniques from me. They learned how to bring their whole selves to their practice. They learned that martial arts wasn't just about physical skill. It was about emotional development, personal growth, and authentic expression. The fourth practice is emotional courage. This is the willingness to feel whatever arises without trying to control, suppress, or manipulate it. It's the courage to be vulnerable, to show your real feelings, and to express your authentic truth, even when it's uncomfortable or risky. This is perhaps the most challenging practice because it goes everything our culture teaches us about emotional management and social appropriateness. I had to practice this courage every time I stepped in front of a camera. It would have been easy to play it safe, to give the expected performance and to express only the emotions that were comfortable and familiar. But I made a commitment to bring my real self to every role, to find the genuine emotions within myself that connected to the character I was playing. This meant being willing to access my own pain, my own fear, my own joy, and share it with the world, It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. The most profound discovery I made through these practices was that emotional depth isn't just about feeling more intensely. It's about living more fully. When you're connected to your authentic emotions, everything becomes more vivid, more meaningful, more meaningful, more alive. Colors seem brighter, relationships feel deeper, and challenges become opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to overcome. You stop going through the motions of your life and start truly living it. But I must warn you about the challenges you'll face on this path. Our society is deeply uncomfortable with authentic emotional expression. You'll be told you're too sensitive, too intense, too much, too much. You'll be encouraged to tone it down, to be more professional, to keep your feelings to yourself. You'll face the temptation to return to the safety of emotional numbness, to the comfort of performing rather than feeling. I faced this resistance constantly in my career. Directors wanted me to be less intense. Producers thought my emotional approach was too risky, and critics preferred the safety of predictable performances. But every time I compromised my emotional authenticity for the comfort of others, I felt something die inside me. I learned that the approval of others is never worth the betrayal of your own truth. The path of emotional depth also requires you to face the emotions you've been avoiding. For years, I avoided feeling my loneliness, my insecurity, my fear of not being good enough. I stayed busy, focused on achievement, and surrounded myself with people who reflected the image I wanted to see. But authentic emotional depth requires you to feel everything, not just the emotions that are comfortable or socially acceptable. I realized that my loneliness wasn't a sign of weakness or failure. It was information about my deep need for genuine connection. When I stopped running from this feeling and started expressing it authentically, I began attracting relationships that were based on who I truly was rather than who I pretended to be. The same thing happened with my fear. For years, I projected an image of fearlessness, of supreme confidence, of unshakable strength. But beneath this image, I was terrified of failure, of rejection, of not living up to the expectations others had placed on me. When I finally admitted this fear to myself and began expressing it honestly,